Somalia affirms our first contention is resource management. Due to disagreements between permanent members, the UNSC has been inefficient at distributing resources and effectuating change for CE23. Russia has repeatedly thrown up obstacles to collective actions. It vetoed a draft resolution that would have authorized a 9-month renewal of cross-border aid delivery to northern Syria. The push for change is not limited to the SC. The ORC has also been under pressure to streamline its stifling bureaucracy, increasing efficiency and reducing costs. The P5 has failed to equitably distribute economic benefits across the world, Ryder, Bashan, and UU20. The UN's structural inability to compel the P5 countries themselves to act decisively for the greater good is often acknowledged as a key justification for change. The P5's failure to distribute economic benefits to the rest of the world is a structural problem that justifies change. The UNSC does not prioritize aid in the country that needed the most, Syria proves, CARE 22. The Council ignored calls from humanitarian organizations to use all means necessary to ensure that the 4 million Syrians in the Northwest who are in acute need will get the help they need over the coming year. Consistent and sustained cross-border assistance is vital to crucial aid, including food, water, shelter, medical care, and other life-saving assistance. The US and China, P5 members, contribute to the UN's budget problem by failing to pay their dues, Franco 24. The US owes $1.1 billion to the UN's regular budget for 2023 and 2024 plus additional arrears. China didn't pay its dues, which exacerbated the UN's liquidity problems. All UN departments are affected, including the handful of human rights investigations, most of which have relatively small staffs and budgets. The world is facing record levels of need for humanitarian assistance, and effective UNSC is crucial, UN 23. Global humanitarian needs this year are at record levels. 360 million people worldwide need humanitarian assistance, up 30% since the start of last year. More than 110 million people have been forced from their homes, and more than 260 million people face acute food insecurity, with some at risk for famine. That's why our second contention is also climate progress. Permanent members of the UNSC disagree on methods to address climate change, which decreases the likelihood of passing necessary resolutions. The UN Security Council has been unsuccessful at addressing climate change day in Crampy 23. Efforts to make climate change a standing item on the Security Council agenda have so far failed. Notably, China and Russia want to keep Security Council business restricted to deploying peace operations. These mechanisms are not sufficient to address the plethora of climate-related security challenges societies across the world are facing. That's why permanent members have the ability to veto resolutions that address climate change. Friedman 22. The institution has also done little work on climate change. Russia vetoed a rather anodyne resolution, just nudging the council towards tackling climate change as a threat to peace and security, despite 113 countries co-sponsoring the resolution. Possible dissent amongst permanent members disincentivizes climate change action, Arias 22. If the UNSC took up the issue of climate change, it could focus international attention. It would also advocate for the preferences of the most vulnerable countries, while the P5 would be unlikely to expend political capital if they perceive that other members would not be on board. While security concerns make up more than 15% of the climate debate, most member states do not discuss climate change as a security threat. This suggests that most member states would not be in favor of a security-centric approach to addressing climate change. Certain permanent members dispute the responsibility of the USNC or UNSC to address climate change, thus resulting in no action, SCR 21. China and Russia believe that climate change is fundamentally a sustainable development issue rather than a matter of international peace and security. They chafe at what they believe is an effort by other council members to draw generalized links between climate change and threats to international peace and security. Russia in particular cautioned that focusing on climate change could divert the council's attention from other more basic security threats. Extinction. Our offense and their defense is based on inaccurate models. Spectre 19. The risk of climate change poses an existential threat to human civilization. Scientists are too restrained in their predictions of how climate change will affect the planet in the near future. General climate models fail to account for the sheer complexity of the Earth's many interlinked geological processes. The planet plunges into a feedback loop of ever hotter conditions, beyond the threshold of human survivability. The mass movement of refugees, coupled with shrinking coastlines and severe drops in food and water, stress the fabric of the world's largest nations. Armed conflict over resources culminating in nuclear war are likely. The result is the end of human global civilization as we know it. That's why Naveed and I are so proud to affirm.
Robertson 22 observes that women in debate are disadvantaged by gender imbalance, implicit activity norms, and instances of objectification and sexual violence. Tartakovsky 16 quantifies, finding that women are about 4 percentage points less likely than men to win preliminary debate rounds. A win-loss gap of 2.5 to 3 percentage points persists, despite controlling for individual tournament characteristics, suggesting that the results are not solely driven by differences in debate experience or the quality of debate programs. This trend continues with more recent data, and data specific to public forum, with E2020 finding that their dataset with 44 variables and 125,087 unique debate rounds during the 2014-2015 to 2019-2020 school years documents a large difference in win rates between teams of different gender compositions, with female-female teams 17.1% less likely and male-female teams 10% less likely to win a debate round against male-male teams. There are 2 links. Link 1. Debate puts gender minority debaters and teams on which they compete at a structural disadvantage. This round cannot be fairly adjudicated implicated at the point at which I am present in it. The K outweighs theory and substance every time, as you cannot evaluate the theory or the substance, because everything in this round has been skewed by gender discrimination. Link 2. Affirming supports real-world gender violence. Removing permanent membership and thus the veto power of the UNSC clears the way for more frequent UN interventions in the developing world. UN intervention is fraught with acts of gendered sexual violence. Cabrera 19. 134 peacekeepers were implicated in the creation of a child sex trafficking ring. Trigger warning for the next part. This exploitation went on for years before they were discovered, and the peacekeepers were merely sent home from the assignment. Multiple peacekeepers have been found assaulting young women on numerous occasions. Rowley and Mahamba 23 further report that UN peacekeeping missions in Africa and beyond have long been plagued with allegations of sexual misconduct. Previous sex abuse scandals have emerged in Congo and the Central African Republic. Cabrera 19. To date, not a single UN peacekeeper has been prosecuted for a sexual crime while on a peacekeeping mission because, as Raleigh and Mahamba 23 further explain, under the current system, the UN can investigate crimes and send peacekeepers home, but have no power to prosecute. There are two alternatives. Number one, pick us up to counter the gender bias in debate. At the point at which this K is argued clearly and effectively and is on the flow, it is sufficient for us to pick up prima facie, without any consideration of a single substantive point in the round. This now is the substance of the round, given that no substance can be fairly adjudicated based on the gender makeup of the competitors in the round, or everyone in this round needs to fill out the email we sent in the chain when we sent case. It is an email template we wrote to have every person that hears the case sent to the United Nations, highlighting the concerns we express with their active perpetuation of gendered sexual violence. My partner will also put this email template in the chat for any spectators. In sending this email, you are taking a clear stance against gender violence and sexual abuse. If enough people step up, these emails can have real-world implications. Rule of the ballot. The only real currency judges have in a debate round are their feedback, either on the ballot or verbal disclosure. And insofar as this is true, there's nothing more important to force debate to structurally evolve than a judge's feedback in ballot. Competitors rely on it to adapt their in-round behavior and prep, and tournaments need to have judges who submit ballots to function. Voting for us sets a precedent in favor of a positive model of debate. Wins and losses determine the direction of the activity. By picking us up, you send the message that gender bias cannot and will not be tolerated. So teams and coaches will be forced to adapt in order to win rounds. The impacts are twofold. If we win this tournament, it will create more discourse. Equality and Forensics post the winners of their tournaments on their Instagram page, which currently has 3,977 followers. All of those people will see our faces in the post. Us winning also encourages other debaters to read Ks. The more that Ks win, the more they'll get run, and the impacts above compound. Claims of fairness in TRs are how you continue to marginalize the outgroup and re-entrench power structures. Delgado 92. The stronger party is able to have their way. The objective approach is not more fair, it embodies the stronger party. Allowing ourselves to be drawn into arguments about fairness points us away from the way in which stronger parties have managed to inscribe their views and interests in fairness. The AFF roll of the ballot comes before T and theory arguments. Judge scope. The roll of the ballot speaks specifically to this round and how the ballot should be signed, while theory is about norm setting, which is out of the judge's scope because that is out of round. Offense. The roll of the ballot constrains what is and isn't offensive, so theory cannot be contextualized to the framing, or else it's not effective. You can't vote on it. Thus, you negate. Thank you.
Is it okay if I take a free question?
Absolutely.
All right, chill. So like just a quick clarification. What's your alt?
Oh, sure. We have two alts actually. So one is to pick us up, because the K is, if it's argued clearly and effectively, you can pick us up without evaluating any substance, because this is now the substance of the round. Insofar as the substance can't be meaningfully adjudicated because like I'm in this round and gender bias like skews that adjudication. And then we also have a second alt, which is about filling out the email to the UN about the sexual abuse currently occurring by the peacekeepers.
Okay, cool. You can get a question.
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about your resource distribution question and aid. You say that like the United Nations is like vital in giving out this aid, but insofar as we tell you in case that all of this United Nations aid that they're giving like also comes along with like strings attached in the forms of like gender-based and sexual violence, how can you justify like still sending out this aid if we know that people are going to be attacked because of their gender?
We're actually saying that like this aid in the status quo is damaging. And what we're saying is that a lot of times the fact that this aid isn't well structured, isn't being sent out correctly, and oftentimes is left off the table is the reason why you vote in the AFF world. Because the AFF world no longer allows the United States, Russia, China, and other P5 members to discriminate.
Well, sure, but if may I have a follow-up? Sorry, do you mind?
Yeah.
But sure, and if we take this veto power away, it's just going to make it easier for the United Nations to continue to send out these peacekeeping missions, which we know, according to our evidence, continue to allow women to be victimized by sexual abuse.
Okay, great. That's not a follow-up question. I can't answer that.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, all right. So like on like the K, right? So
Sure.
how exactly is it Naveed like obviously I understand that like women can oftentimes be misrepresented, oftentimes skewed against them in debate. But how is it Naveed and I's job to like take the like suffer the loss for something that we can't control?
We're not saying it's like your job to lose. We're saying that insofar as like we win on this K like properly and like we argue this K effectively, it's the role of the judges to pick us up in order to counter this like gender-based bias and to raise more awareness to the issue.
But the only way that you can win the K is if Naveed and I are both male, right?
No, actually, the gender like makeup of the round doesn't matter. Like insofar as we like women are present in the round can't be fairly adjudicated. So even if like one of you was like a woman, the round still couldn't be fairly adjudicated because there would be like women present in the round. But that's a really good question. Thank you.
Yeah, you can take another one.
Sure. Just like kind of a like question on your climate impact. How likely is it that climate change actually like results in this like mass extinction?
Yeah, by the way, cross is over, but I'll quickly respond.
That's my bad.
Basically, yeah, what the card is saying is like climate change is on the path right now. Like there's no like probability that it hits that. If nothing happens, it's going to hit that path. We need incremental help to avoid that. But that's cross. Thank you.
Thank you.
First off, trigger warning 3A interpretation before starting a speech. Advantages must verbally disclose that their speech discussions are non-graphic or graphic, potential triggering subject matter such as sexual assault or other triggering material they read, as well as to alter their speeches according to the request of their opponents or judges. To clarify, read trigger warnings, be violation. It's in the speech chart and they read it. C standards are sole standard of safety. Trigger warnings keep survivor safe. ILFND. Trigger warnings help survivors reduce their stress memories of trauma or more distressing anxiety. Warning that the survivor intentionally thinks about their trauma. Unprompted trigger warning, triggering information can cause panic attacks, difficulty sleeping, and more. Trigger warnings respect that people must deal with their trauma when they are ready. It is up to the survivor to decide if they are ready. Safety is an independent voter issue which always all the concerns around because actors that can harm the safety of harm vulnerable individuals, push people out of debate and road as an activity. Safety is also the strongest generally this fairness because if they are strong, they'll safe and around. They cannot debate which is intentionally fair as well as destroys any educational benefit around. D voters. One, education is voter because it's the only portable skill from debate. Two, fairness is a voter because you can see fair adjudication arguments we make them. Drop the debater. Two justifications. One, wins and losses determine the direction of the event, then illusion the shell test and other trigger warning and PF. Two, once the safety of the round has been jeopardized, it cannot be undone. Completing interpretation. Two warrants. One, reasonability is arbitrary. We don't know your BS meter. Two, reasonability causes race to the bottom, disincentivize the industry, increasingly unfair arguments, appeal to a reasonable standard. Second office RTB spec. Interpretation of the AFF from the conventional truth testing model, they must explicitly specify a comprehensive role of the ballot and determine how the round will play out in that role of the ballot in the form of text in the 1AC. Clarify the NEG must one, clarify offense looks back to the role of the ballot, such as whether post-fiat offense or pre-fiat offense matters, and which comes first. Two, clarify how to weigh and compare between competing advocacies, i.e. whether the role of the ballot is solely determined by the flow or another method of engagement. Violation, you don't specify. C standards. One, engagement. If I don't know how the role of the ballot functions, then it's impossible for me to engage in next, knowing what counts as the office for me is a prerequisite, being able to make meaningful arguments that clash with yours, knowing what a legitimate advocacy is ensures that I reach something that's relevant to your method, and knowing how to weigh gives us an explicit standard of how it's relevant for preventing superficial clash when you make fashion preclusion claims. Two, strategy skew. You make formulating a strategy impossible since I don't know what you're linked to your evaluative mechanism. My intern means we don't know what a legitimate net advocacy is. Otherwise, you can make a reason. Mine isn't linked to the role of the ballot in the next speech by sticking away a mechanism. I know how to make the most relevant arguments, so you can't arbitrarily preclude them in the next speech. If I go for a policy action and they say the NC's about speech acts and I lose any ability to engage on new framing in the 2-8 because I don't know how to function in the 1AC links to substantive engagement because I don't know how to effectively engage in your position. Frame, you can't use your RTB to exclude my shell. My shell allows you to read your role of the ballot. It's just functionally constraints that you can do that additionally as long as I wouldn't compare to the office and my interpreclusion methodological level. My method is your RTB with specification. Yours is just an RTB, so the former is better than to reason to vote from the method of based in general for proof theory authors. They for that case person approved C based on my shell since they should have specified an NC. Ballot reliance disadd. To say that the ballot is key to see that your arguments are dependent on anti-feminist and anti-queer incitations like debate, which unifies the system, turning your arguments because we can't break down structures that are showed up by their critique. Turns case. Symbolic affirmation of work for material advocacy, range of powers. Recall us in law 9. Every day, root system fails to tell us more about than was already known in gross material conditions. It is necessary to do more than discursive acts to engage with power and must be demonstrated that acts out of the broader change, resistance, provoke refinements of practice that confers critique, whose analysis enter the production of non-compliance helps the power to work better. Discussions within the debate context specifically end up fragmenting coalitions and sparking backlash against communal change. Actions in Canada 11. Losing the debaters become collateral damage and the activists to that strategy dedicated towards creating change, treating opponents as scapegoats of the failure of the community does little to generate the critical coalitions necessary to address the community problem. For those reasons, you urge an AFF ballot.
On that note, let's start on the roll of the ballot. Time starts on my first word. On the roll of the ballot, shell, like they can just ask question and cross solves. But then, extend the preamps that my partner reads you and rebut in the K, specifically the Elgato 92 card that tells you that claims of fairness are how you marginalize the outgroup and re-entrench power structures. Then re-extend what my partner tells you how the AFF roll of the ballot comes with 4 theory arguments. First, the roll of the ballot speaks specifically to this round, and how the ballot should be signed, while theory is about norm setting, which is out of the judge's scope because that is out of round. Therefore, you can't vote on any of the shells they read. Second, the roll of the ballot constrains what is and isn't offensive, so theory must be contextualized to the framing, or else it's not offensive, so you can't vote on it. Then we can the theory speaks out to a fair and educational space, but our role of the ballot evidence says that those spaces can't exist prior to the AFF because actually skip that. Now go on to like go down to like theories and coherence. It's gonna be like a new off. The ballot is always determined off abuse and inequalities. Otherwise, it would be impossible to evaluate the round. You can't evaluate theory because it's evaluating off the flow rather than making the decision of which is actually a better norm. So you can't actually be consistent with the voters. Then theory doesn't produce the best rules since it allows the better theory debater to produce rules that will benefit them. And things get proven true in debate rounds all the time that aren't true in the real world. So theory doesn't actually achieve its purpose because it doesn't prove better norms. Then theory doesn't create better norms because people just get better at debating theory and could just continue being abusive. Then it's a contradiction because you say your voters either constitutive or beneficial for competitive activity, but no competitive activity would establish rules in the middle of a competition. Then theory sets bad norms because we vote for interms that are marginally better than other interms rather than the best version of the interm, so it doesn't achieve the voter. Then theory is paradoxical because it attempts to limit arguments but uses arguments to do that, which concedes the validity of the argument in the first place. Analytic on the trigger warning theory, we've been sitting in the Zoom room like 10 minutes before the round started. They could have told us to read a trigger warning, like they could have told us any specific areas that they want us to read a trigger warning on. Yeah, okay. Then, fairness outweighs education on reversibility. We can learn more about the topic after the round, but the impact of us losing the round can't be changed later. Then motivation, as people would want to go to debate and get educated if they don't have a chance of winning. And on reciprocity, if the debate is unfair, which it already is, you're getting more education than me than my partner and I because you have more time to talk. Then, next off, they read shell format theory, which is bad because shell format needlessly complicates simple arguments, making it less inclusive to teams without knowledge of the format. Then it reduces clash on theory, as PFers without knowledge of how to debate theory get stuck in jargon. 2 implications here. Just one. Uninclusive norms because better theory teams will win shells more steering debate more away from everyone else. Couple preamps. Those say PFers should just learn theory. Empirics disprove, as those say theory is good to set norms, and paragraph theory solves back for all offense. Or like I can make the same argument just without the jargon. Now, speed is bad. Our argument is that reading fast or quote unquote spreading in debate is a bad practice. 3 reasons. First, speed of reading prevents education and accessibility in debate. Zorn 2012. On one of the first and more arresting images in Deborah Toshishi's documentary Fast Talk is a young man literally foaming at the mouth. He's a contestant at the highest level of intercollegiate debate, an activity that has devolved, some say evolved, into a virtually incomprehensible rapid fire tit for tat battle in which opponents hurl facts and assertions at one another in an estimated 400 words per minute. They're not just that much fun to watch at work. Toshinsky, who teaches filmmaking at Northwestern, actually skip that. In real life, a high-level argument or debate is not only fun to watch, it can also change hearts and minds with advancing public understanding. College debate, which teaches many of the best and brightest on any campus, is missing a fabulous opportunity to become a spectator sport of sorts, one that could engage and enlighten the general public and even help us explore some of the vital issues of the day. This can also be cross-applied to high school debate. Then, spreading hinders our understanding of arguments. This decreases education. Bauman 97 writes that if we have good hearing and the person is speaking at a moderate speed, our ears will pick up and our brains will process what we're hearing in real time, and we will still have time to think about what we have heard. In other words, we will understand and assimilate the message. However, as a person speaks faster and faster, we spend more and more time more of our time trying to catch words spoken, and thus we have less and less time left over to try to assimilate what we have heard. This is where we begin to lose it. Often we know the general subject, but we miss the point the opponents are trying to make. We have that's time.
Yeah, can I answer the first question?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. All right, time to get my first word. Did you read a shell in your second rebuttal?
No, it wasn't a shell.
You read theory on me, so how can you say that theory is bad if you read it? Like, I don't get that.
We're just saying like to evaluate the K before the theory.
No, you didn't say that.
Everything
You said that like theory and shell format's bad, but you literally read it. Like I can see on the speech off that she read like spreading bad theory. So I don't. Does that take out your own offense?
It's not theory. It's just like why speed is bad. It's just like an
But it's
argument.
theory. You're debating about debate. That's what theory fundamentally is. I don't see how that doesn't take out your own offense, saying that theory is bad. But you can take a question.
All right. Let's talk about the role of the ballots, like specificity, like your second off. Doesn't cross just solve for that?
How?
you can just ask questions during cross about like what a role of the ballot is.
The theory shell is about like the role of ballot itself. Like we're asking you to explicitly specify a comprehensive role of ballot. We shouldn't waste our own cross time to like ask for like what your interpretation of the role of ballot is. We shouldn't waste cross time on that. So
What's the purpose of cross? Quick follow up. What's the purpose of cross?
for clarification on case, but that'll take so long. If you just like actually like specified the role of the ballot like in your case, that wouldn't have to waste cross. And that doesn't get rid of like all education and fairness impacts. But can I take a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll spawn to speed bad theory. Weren't all judges in the room like before first rebuttal and before the round even started say that y'all are fine with speed?
I wasn't here for that, and I didn't hear that.
Okay, then your partner, we can go over this in grand, but your partner like said we could spread. So I'm going off, her justification that,
Yeah, but you said that you would spread if only we spread K. So like at that point, like what the hell?
well, like we could go back like who spread first, but like I mean.
It was clearly you when you read like a bunch of offs and like a bunch of stuff. Like it's literally not.
Okay, I told y'all if I was going too fast, you couldn't understand me to yell clear. You were there for that, I'm sure.
You never said that. Like I didn't catch.
I did, bro. Ask the judges, but you can take a question.
Sure. Yeah, actually, you can take another question.
Well, yeah. So like on these like women, don't you guys hurt women more because like the sexual assault that you read in your case, you never give me a trigger warning for it. So like don't trigger warnings like. Isn't the #1 voter for trigger warnings like safety? So aren't you guys harming women inherently?
What? So you're saying that us trying to disrupt the debate space or bringing awareness about gender discrimination in the debate space harms
without
women?
reading it? Well, you read explicit you read something explicit about sexual assault without reading a trigger warning, and that like inherently harms people. So as far as you don't give me any reason how you're keeping like women safe, you're not really solving for anything.
So us solving for gender discrimination doesn't count, is what you're saying. Like that
I'm not
doesn't.
talking about you solving for gender discrimination. I'm talking about like in your case, the descriptions of sexual violence that you read in your case. So you guys aren't really solving for anything, but yeah, that's basically.
Our contention on climate change is the biggest voter in the round. It's simple. Permanent members have the ability to veto resolutions that address climate change. Certain permanent members dispute the responsibility of the USNC to address climate change, thus resulting in no action in an extinction scenario, and they never give defense on this. Extinction outweighs all impacts insofar as they don't give you a single attack. The impact is clean for the act. But now on their case on the fem disruption. Extend our trigger warning theory enter. Before starting a speech, debaters must verbally disclose if their speech discusses non-graphic or graphic potentially triggering subject matter such as sexual assault, as well as offers to alter their speeches according to requests of their opponents' judges to clarify trigger warnings. Our sole standard is safety. Trigger warning keeps survivors safe. Trigger warnings help survivors reduce the stress, memories of trauma, or more distressing without any warning that any survivor intentionally thinks about their trauma. When pumped to triggering information can cause panic attacks, difficulty sleeping, and more. That's the ILF. Safety is an independent voter which outweighs all other concerns in the round because actions that harm safety at this event harm vulnerable individuals, push people out of the debate, and erode it as an activity. If people feel unsafe in the space, then we can't have this space in the first place. Extend education as a voter. First, education as a voter because it's the only portable skill in debate. Drop the debater two justifications. First, wins and losses determine the direction of the event. Then the losing official tells them and other debaters to reach rewarding SPF. Two, once the safety of the round has been jeopardized, it cannot be undone. Competing interrupts extend the warning that first, reasonability is arbitrarity. We don't know what your BS meter is. They tell that the shell theory is bad, but they literally read multiple interrupts that take that out of their own offense. Shell theory is the best because it's the most accessible form of debating about debate. They say you can't evaluate theory, but you absolutely can. They say theory doesn't create better norms, but when we simply ask you to respect trigger warnings, it's as simple as a ballot that forces you to become conscious of other people in space. They say that we would have asked them to read a trigger warning, but how could we know that there would be something trigger warning before the round? You read a trigger warning mid-case, you should have known. Extend ballot reliance DA. To say that the ballot is key to see that your argument is dependent on anti-feminist and anti-core institutions like debate, which refies the system, turning your arguments because we can't break down structures that are shored up by the critic. Turns case, symbolic affirmation divorced from material advocacy re-entrenches powder. Every day, resistance fails to tell us any more about that was already known and ignores material conditions. It might be necessary to do more discursive acts to engage with power must also be demonstrated such as acts add up to broader changes. Discussions within debate conflicts specifically end up fragmenting coalitions and sparking backlash against communal change. Losing debaters become collateral damage in the activist strategy dedicated towards creating change. Treating opponents as scapegoats for their failures of the community does little to generate the critical coalition necessary to address the community problem. They say nothing against our disad. It's cleanly extended, which kicks their K out, and it's too late to bring up a second summary or final. But on the blip about cross, it's not our job to use cross time for something that you should have that you just conceded should have been in case. On the spreading bad shell in second rebuttal, there's no violation in this shell because they consented to spreading both before the round and both before the rebuttal. It's up to the judge, they literally heard it. This is a varsity PF finals. We spoke at most 300 words per minute because you read a long K with 2 ults without a trigger warning. They say it decreases the ability to understand args, but we give you a speech block so you can literally flow the round, kick that argument. This also takes out their argument how shells are bad, so either it kicks out offense or kicks out defense for the NEG. It's so clean for the AFF. We affirm.
Okay, first on their turn, they say that using debate like is bad to advocate for feminism, but they really don't provide any like alternative advocacy. But also inside of our case, we give you a link that allows you to advocate for feminism outside the debate space. So we both advocate for feminism within the debate space and outside of the debate space. That turn doesn't make any sense. We're not saying to vote for us just because like I'm a woman. We're saying to vote for us because we provide advocacy that actually creates change and like rethinks the structural norms of debate to make it more equitable. Drop speed bad. We're not going to continue with that. But we tell you that theory specifically does not create better norms. In fact, theory is incoherent because the ballot is always going to be determined off abuse and inequalities. Otherwise, it would be impossible to evaluate the round. You can't evaluate theory because it's evaluating off the flow rather than making decision of which is actually a better norm. So you can't actually be consistent with the voters. Theory doesn't produce the best rules since it allows the better theory debater to produce rules that will benefit them. Things get proven true in debate rounds all the time that aren't true in the real world. So theory doesn't actually achieve its purpose because it doesn't provide better norms. Theory doesn't actually create better norms because people just get better at debating theory and continue being abusive. It's a contradiction because you say your voter is either constitutive of or beneficial for competitive activity, but no competitive activity would establish rules in the middle of a competition. Theory sets bad norms because we vote for interps that are marginally better than other interps rather than the best version of the interp, so it doesn't achieve the voter. Theory is paradoxical because it attempts to limit arguments but uses arguments to do that, which concedes the validity of the argument in the first place. Now some extensions. Judge scope. Our role of the ballot speaks specifically to this round and how the ballot should be signed. While theory is about norm setting, which is out of the judge's scope because it's out of round. Offense. The role of the ballot constrains what is and what isn't offensive. So theory must be contextualized to the framing, or else it's not offensive, so you can't vote on it. Theory speaks to a fair and educational space, but my role of the ballot evidence says that those spaces can't exist prior to the app because they're grounded in sexual and gender-based violence. Side constraint. The critique sets out a problem in debate, and the role of the ballot tends to solve it. Otherwise, that bias can never be solved and influences theory, meaning it's a side constraint on effective theory. Remember, we can weigh the case. I'm not leveraging my advocacy, which is what T is criticizing with only a warrant. They need to prove that the warrants are unfair. The only reason you couldn't engage was because the app is not presented traditionally. And remember, Robertson 22 explains that women in debate are disadvantaged by gender imbalance, implicit activity norms, and instances of objectification and sexual violence. Tartakovsky 16 quantifies that women are 4%. Fairness outweighs education. Reversibility. We can't learn more about the topic after the round, but the impact of me losing the round can't be changed later. If we win this round, then it motivates more debaters to continue to read arguments like this, which in turn creates actual change within the debate space. But 2, motivation. People would want to debate and get educated if they don't have a chance of winning. But 3, reciprocity. If the debate is unfair, you're getting more education than me because you have more time to talk. But also, remember what we tell you. Women are 4% less likely to win prelim rounds, and female teams are 17.1% less likely. Male-female teams are 10% less likely. You cannot evaluate their theory accurately at the point that I am present in this round because my gender identity as a woman completely skews the judge's ability to actually evaluate this round. We tell you this in case and we're re-extending, but that's time. Thank you.
Can I take first question?
Sure.
Okay, so since you didn't interact with climate change, we win that.
Well, we're telling you that you can't evaluate any kind of substance in this round because of like my gender.
Okay, cool. But like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But like, if you don't want to evaluate it, that's fine. But on that notion, does that mean we win it?
Like, if we win your like fem disruption K, like we turn it, which we have, does that mean we're evaluating substance and then we win climate change?
Well, I responded to that turn, so I
Well,
would.
no, like I'm just saying, in that hypothetical situation, do we win?
I mean, I guess so, but that's
Oh,
not
okay.
the situation that we're in.
Is there a question?
Wait, just a clarification on the trigger warning theory. You're going for education as a standard, right?
Yeah, we've been going for education as a standard.
Cool. Okay.
Y'all can have another
Or
question.
we're going for education as a voter, safety as a standard.
Yeah. Y'all can have another question.
Okay. Well, even if like we buy your climate change, that doesn't like change the fact that if you affirm, you make it like easier for the United Nations to continue to carry out these like peacekeeping missions. So even if that like climate impact like somehow manifests of like this giant extinction event, how can we still like justify affirming when we know that like acts of sexual violence are going to be committed regardless?
I'm not saying that we're advocating for sexual violence, but the biggest thing is like there is no sexual violence if the world is gone. Like if we blow ourselves to smithereens and like the world is inhabitable, then at that point there's nothing that we can debate for. There's nothing that we can yearn for. There's nothing that we can be human for. That's the biggest impact in today's round.
Sure. Can I have a brief follow-up on that?
We've been on this for a while, but sure.
Sure. Basically, our Spectrum 9 key card is saying we're currently on track to like meet this like climate death, right? And if we don't push climate change action, then we are going to find like large-scale nuclear warfare because of resource management, right? The Earth will become uninhabitable. You never, ever, ever like turn that. You never said it was wrong. That means we like that is true in the round. Extinction wins, or extinction is the way for substance. Anyways, can we get a question?
Sure.
Well, yeah. So did you drop the fact that like we need to ask for a trigger warning, even though we don't know if you're reading a trigger warning in your case?
I'm sorry, I don't get, what's the question?
Okay, your partner said in rebuttal that we should have asked if there was a trigger warning in your case before you even sent case. Did you extend that?
No, we did not.
Okay. You have another question?
Sure. I just like, this is like even more on this United Nations stuff. Like, I just don't understand how we can justify like affirming when all of your like climate impacts are like purely hypothetical.
It's
and
not.
Can I finish, please? Can I finish my question? That these like mass extinctions events are like hypothetical and we don't know exactly when they're going to occur, but we do already know that sexual violence is occurring in the status quo. Can I please finish?
No, yeah, well, I mean,
you went over cross.
It's 8 our time, but just real quick, that like our climate resolutions in the UN are the like only path of solvency global cooperation. That's
also, you conceded to the fact, like out of case, you never responded to it. It's clean.
We have a minute of prep left, or yeah, like
we're gonna use that.
something. We'll use the remainder of that starting. Let me get my time. Starting now. On our case, on our contention 2 on climate change is the biggest voter in this round. It's simple. Permanent members have the ability to veto resolutions that address climate change. Certain permanent members dispute the responsibility of the UNNC to address climate change. It's resulting in no action, resulting in extinction failure, and never give defense on this. Extinction outweighs all their impacts insofar as they don't give you single attack against Spectre 19. The impact is clean for the AFF. No norm said you can make as long as everyone said. They give you this new response out of second summary that is like there's no link chain, but they never dispute that in their rebuttal. You can't vote for that, but on the K. Extend ballot reliance to on the RTB to say that ballot is key to your arguments that are dependent on the anti-feminist, anti-queer institutions like the Baylor Streetifies the system, turning your arguments because you can't break down structures that are stored by the critique. 2 reasons why we're in this. 1, they draw the fact that this turns case symbolic affirmation of virtual material advocacy to reinforce power. Everyday resistance fails to tell us more than was already known and ignores the material conditions. It is necessary to do more than discursive acts to engage with power. It also needs to demonstrate that it also acts with a broader change. Insofar as they never interact with the AFF wins case because they cause the very power that they advocated against. But second, they draw the discussions in debate context, specifically end up fragmenting coalitions and sparking backlash against communal change. Losing debaters become collateral damage in the activist strategy dedicated towards creating change. Treating opponents as scapegoats for the failure of this community does little to generate the critical coalitions necessary to address the community problem. They never, even if they lose this round, that means that they're destroying the advocates they go against. It's the only voter for this contention is AFF. And more specifically, they never give anything against our dissent in both speeches. They've only read new shells. It's clean extended, which kicks their K out, and it's too late to bring up in second final. Extend or trigger warning theory enter. Before starting a speech, debaters must verbally disclose their speech, discuss non-graphic or graphic potential triggering subject matters to sexual assault as well to offer to alter their speeches according to the request of their opponents or judges. Clarify trigger warnings. Our sole standard is safety. Trigger warnings keep survivors safe. Trigger warnings help survivors reduce distress, memories of trauma, or more distressing without warning. Then if the survivor intentionally thinks about their trauma, unprompted triggering information can cause a panic attack typical to sting them more. That's the ILF. Safety is independent voter, which outweighs all their concerns around. Extend education to the voter. Education to the voter because it's the only portable skill debate. Draw the debater. Once the safety of the round is in jeopardy, cannot be undone. The only extended defense they give is that they say that shell theory is bad. They literally need multiple shells, and that takes out their offense. They also say that theory doesn't create any better norms. We simply ask you to reject trigger warnings. As simple as a ballot that forces you to become consistent, and they kick out the spreading bad shell. That's why we affirm.
First of all, on the trigger warning show, they don't respond to the fairness outweighs education on the weighing, so therefore we're winning the theory show, which means at this point we're winning the round. Extend like the weighing that we do on reversibility, we can learn more about the topic after the round, but the impact of us losing the round can't be changed later. Second is motivation. People would want to debate and get educated if they don't have a chance of winning. The third reason as to why fairness outweighs education is reciprocity. If the debate is unfair, you're getting more education than us because you have more time to talk. Oh shit, my bad. Fairness comes first, and insofar as they concede, the K comes first. You're voting out the K on their climate change. The K up layers of theory, then comes climate change. Since the K comes first, we win. But even if you don't buy is that we're winning the K, we're still winning the theory shell. Which at which point you're picking us up. Then on like theory, we extend like theory is bad. Theory speaks to a fair and educational space. But my role of the ballot evidence is that those spaces can't exist parts of the act because they're grounded in sexual violence. Then side constraint. The case is out a problem in debate, and the role of ballot attempts to resolve it. Otherwise, that bias can never be solved and influences theory, meaning to side constraint effective theory. At this point, this is why you're always for us, voting for us because we're the only ones that even prevent, that even come forward with advocacy. They don't permit any of our alts, which means that at this point, this is the only reason as to why you're voting neg, because we're the only ones who actually solve for gender discrimination in the debate space. And then we weigh the case. We're not leveraging our advocacy, which is what theory is criticizing, but only a warrant. They need to prove that the warrants are unfair, which they haven't done the entirety of the round. The only reason you couldn't engage was because the ad was not presented traditionally. Then theory is bad, and the bad is always determined off of abuse and inequality, so that it would be impossible to evaluate the round. You can't evaluate theory because evaluating off the flow rather than making the decision of which is actually a better norm. So you can't be consistent with the voters. Then theory doesn't produce the best roles since it allows debaters the better theory that will benefit them. Then theory doesn't actually create better norms because people just get better at debating theory, continue being abusive. They're just gonna in other rounds, they're just gonna keep continuing spamming theory shells that don't actually provide they're just unfair and abusive. Then theory sets bad norms because we vote for answers that are marginally better than other answers rather than the best version of the answer. At the end of the day, you're always voting for us. Oh yeah, and on the disad, the only thing the disad is the ballot reliance, voting on relying on the ballot is bad. But we'll just share okay, never mind. That's time.
Yeah, good debate.
Good debate, GG's. Thank you.
Round, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for judging.
Thank you for judging.